Picture this. You're the size of a grain of rice. You're soft, slow, and delicious. And you decide to live inside a spider web, not near a spider web. Inside it, every step you take vibrates the silk like a burglar walking across a house alarm. One mistake, and the homeowner rushes in. 8 legs, fangs, venom, wraps you up, and turns you into a liquid smoothie. So, how do you survive? Deep in the forests of Oahu, Hawaii, scientists found a caterpillar that solved this problem. It builds a portable silk case, and then decorates that case with the severed body parts of the spider's other victims. Ant heads, fly wings, beetle abdomens, weevil faces, even scraps of a spider's shed skin. It looks like a moving pile of trophies. Researchers nicknamed it the bone collector caterpillar, and if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. It was only described recently, and it may be so rare that it could vanish before it even gets an official scientific name. In the next few minutes, I'll show you 3 things. How the bone collector builds its house of skulls, how it survives with a spider as its landlord, and why this tiny monster is also one of the most fragile animals on Earth. First, the setting. Forget beaches and palm trees. This story happens in cool, shadowy forest on the slopes of the Waianae Mountains. Think damp logs, tree hollows, and cracks in rock where light barely reaches. In those tight spaces, spiders stretch webs across the opening, like sticky curtains and tripwires at the same time. Most caterpillars would never go near that. They are built for leaves, not war. A typical caterpillar strategy is simple: eat plants fast, grow fast, and hope nothing finds you. But the bone collector isn't typical. It belongs to a group of Hawaiian moths called Hyposmocoma, often nicknamed Hawaii's fancy case caterpillars. When they're young, they make little portable cases out of silk and carry them around like body armor. Normally, that armor is decorated with natural camouflage: sand, lichen, algae, tiny bits of bark. Boring, but effective. Then the bone collector takes the same idea and pushes it straight into nightmare fuel. The first time researchers found one of these cases, they didn't believe it. It looked like a random pile of insect scraps stuck to silk. A fluke. But over years of surveys, they kept finding the same kind of case. Always near spider webs, always made of body parts. Eventually, they caught one in the act, a tiny head popping out, legs grabbing silk, the whole pile of parts, crawling like it owned the place. That's when the coincidence became a pattern. Here's what it does. It patrols the spider web. Slowly, carefully, like a thief checking rooms in a house. And it doesn't just look for living prey. It looks for leftovers. A spider eats messy. After the venom does its work, the spider often leaves behind dry pieces. Hollow heads, legs, wing shells, empty abdomens. To us, it's trash. To the bone collector, it's both dinner and construction material. This caterpillar will actually feed on weakened or recently dead insects trapped in the web. And when the meal is too deep inside the silk, it can even chew through strands to reach it. So it's stealing food from a predator while standing on the predator's weapon. Now comes the bone collecting. Instead of decorating its case with random debris, the caterpillar selects body parts. Then it does something weirdly precise. It measures them. Researchers have watched bone collectors test a piece against the case, reposition it, and only then stitch it down with silk. Like a tailor fitting armor plates. A fly wing might become a roof tile. A weevil head becomes a shoulder pad. A beetle abdomen becomes a shield segment. And sometimes the caterpillar adds pieces of the spider's own shed skin, like wearing your landlord's old jacket. Layer by layer, the case turns into a grim collage, a portable museum of death. But why go to all that effort? Because in a spider's home, hunger is not the main danger. Detection is. Spiders don't see the way we do. They feel. They read vibrations. They react to shape, movement, and the texture of things in their web. Scientists think the bone collector's case works as camouflage. So when the spider senses it, the spider doesn't register fresh, soft prey. It registers old leftovers. Trash. A clump of dried insect parts. And that difference could be the line between life and being wrapped up in silk forever. It's not just hiding, it's deception. Imagine sneaking into a lion's den wearing a coat made from old bones and fur. So the lion glances at you and thinks you're just part of last week's mess. That's the bone collector's whole strategy: decorate or die. And the craziest part is how early it starts. Soon after hatching, it spins the first version of its case, then upgrades it as it grows, adding new layers as it molts. It carries that case everywhere. When danger approaches, it disappears inside, leaving only a messy clump of bug parts behind. Eventually, after months of feeding, that same case becomes its cocoon. Inside the grisly shell, the caterpillar breaks down and rebuilds itself, emerging as a tiny moth. The nightmare, somehow, grows wings, and it gets darker. These caterpillars aren't just carnivorous, they can be cannibalistic. Spiders don't catch an infinite amount of food, especially inside a small hollow. So, if two bone collectors end up in the same web, there may be only enough leftovers for one. Researchers have observed that they can attack and eat each other. One web, one pantry, one survivor. Quick favor, if this is making your brain itch, hit like, because the next part explains how this strategy survived for millions of years. Now, zoom out from the horror and look at the biology. Predatory caterpillars are incredibly rare. Out of roughly 200,000 known moth and butterfly species, only a few hundred caterpillars are meat eaters. So when you find one that not only eats meat, but lives in spider hunting grounds and wears the remains of prey like armor, you're looking at something that evolution has fine-tuned in a very specific direction. Genetic evidence suggests the bone collector lineage is at least 6 million years old, older than the current main Hawaiian Islands we see today, and likely older than Oahu itself. That's important because islands move on a geological conveyor belt. New volcanic islands rise from the ocean. Older islands erode, shrink, and eventually sink beneath the waves. So, a lineage older than its current island probably survived by living on older islands that have already disappeared, ancient landmasses now drowned to the northwest. In other words, this House of Skulls strategy didn't just work once. It worked across different islands, different climates, and millions of years of change. It kept working. But despite being ancient, the bone collector seems to be living on the edge. Over more than 2 decades of searching, scientists have documented only about 62 individuals. All of them came from the same small region of forest in the Waianae Mountains. An area around 15 square kilometers, a single invasive predator, a fungus. A dry year that shifts the forest. One construction project. One wildfire. When your entire known population lives in a patch you could drive across in minutes, endangered stops being a label and starts being a countdown. And Hawaiian ecosystems are under pressure. Invasive ants, wasps, and other predators can reshape insect communities. Non-native plants can change the structure of the forest. And climate change can push moisture and temperature patterns uphill, shrinking the cool, wet zones that many specialized species depend on. The bone collector is the kind of organism that doesn't get a second chance somewhere else. It isn't found across continents. It isn't even found across islands. As far as we know, it's found in one place on Earth. So if it disappears, we don't just lose a weird caterpillar. We lose an ancient branch of evolution. Millions of years of experiments, solutions, and genetic history. Gone before most humans ever knew to care. And here's the final twist. For all its brutality, the bone collector isn't a monster. It's a mirror. It shows what evolution can do when the rules are harsh and the margins are thin. It shows how creativity in nature doesn't look like beauty all the time. Sometimes it looks like survival stitched together from the dead. Somewhere tonight, in a dark crack of wood on Oahu, a spider is waiting for vibrations, and a tiny house of skulls is moving across its web like a ghost. If you enjoyed this kind of biology horror, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks caterpillars are harmless. And if you made it to the end, leave a comment with the creepiest animal adaptation you've ever heard of, because I'm always looking for the next nightmare hiding in nature.